Hello, listeners. Welcome back to SpeakNest English Podcast Zone. This is episode 46, and today we're going to explore a fun and important part of English learning. Describing past events and personal experiences. Whether you're writing a story, sharing about your day, or answering an interview question, you'll need these skills. Let's start your journey into the past tense world of English.
Okay, so we got your sources, and it looks like today we're doing a deep dive into, well, something pretty fundamental.
Describing past events, experiences.
Right, and this material, it's not just about, the technical side, the grammar, it's digging into the why.
Exactly. The why behind telling our stories. So we're going to take these sources you sent over and really try to pull out the main insights.
See what the core message is.
Yeah, that's the mission. Find those valuable nuggets about recounting things that have already happened.
And the sources kind of frame it around one central question right from the get-go, don't they?
They do. Pretty simple on the surface. Why is it important to describe past events?
But the answer they give, it immediately broadens things out.
Yeah.
Because, well, life is full of stories. That's basically it.
It is. And what I found interesting is how the sources link this straight to, basic human interest.
How so?
Well, when you share something, people aren't just passively listening. They instinctively want the narrative details.
Like, what happened?
Exactly. What happened? And, crucially, when did it happen?
Yeah.
But also, and this seems really key, how did you feel about it?
Ah, okay. That feeling part. That really does jump out from the material, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the facts. The sources seem to be saying that adding that emotional layer is, vital.
Vital for connection, for making it relatable. It helps the story stick, right? Much more than just a dry report of events.
Yeah, makes sense. Taps into shared experience.
Definitely. And then moving past that connection aspect, your sources also point to some very concrete, practical reasons.
Right, the practical stuff, like for students.
Yeah, students writing application essays or, anyone prepping for a job interview.
Oh, sure. For interviews, being able to talk about past experiences clearly is, well, it's essential. You have to do it.
It's non-negotiable sometimes. How else do you show what you can do or talk about a challenge you overcame?
Without laying out the situation, what you actually did, and what happened as a result.
Precisely. The material strongly suggests that kind of structure, even if it doesn't use fancy terms for it.
Like the STAR method people talk about. Situation, task, action, result.
Kind of, yeah. It implies that thinking framework. Situation, action, result. It turns recounting something into demonstrating something.
Okay, so it's not just telling, it's showing through your past actions, makes your history evidence.
Exactly. It becomes a compelling case study of you.
And it's not just for those high-stakes situations either, is it? The sources mention benefits for beginners, too.
Right, maybe someone learning a language or just generally a bit shy.
How does describing the past help there?
It seems to be about building foundational confidence. Practicing with simple past events, which you did this morning last weekend.
Ah, okay. Lower stakes practice.
Yeah, it helps you get comfortable with the basic structure of the vocabulary. Then tackling bigger personal stories feels less daunting.
Good, so it helps you find your voice in a way.
Mm-hmm. Find and strengthen your voice in sharing your own history.
Okay, so let's try to pull these threads together then. From your sources, describing the past isn't just recalling facts.
No, it's much more.
It's about weaving your narrative, connecting with people through, shared emotion.
Structuring experiences to show competence in practical ways.
And also just building that basic confidence to communicate. Is that about right?
I think that captures the core takeaway from the material you shared, yes.
Yeah.
It roots something seemingly simple in the power of story and connection.
Great. Well, that feels like a good place to wrap up our deep dive, looking at why describing past events matters so much based on your sources.
We've seen it's about connection, confidence, and those really practical needs like essays and interviews.
It's sharing your story, really. Connecting with others, maybe even understanding yourself a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a final thought for you, building on all this. If telling your story, your past, is this important for connection, for confidence, for practical stuff, what parts of your own story are you most ready to share? Or maybe just explore a bit more for yourself.
We've got some really interesting source material today. It's all about something that sounds simple, but can be tricky.
Talking about the past, right?
Yeah.
Experiences you've had.
Exactly. And making it, crystal clear for whoever's listening. So our mission today is really to unpack this material.
And pull out the key stuff, the insights that can help you tell your own stories more smoothly in English.
Right. And what really jumped out from the sources was this focus on, well, connectors, specific little words.
Yeah, it seems kind of basic, but the material really stressed how effective they are. These aren't just filler.
No, not at all. They're presented as like essential guides for your listener.
Making the story easy to follow.
Precisely. The sources kept coming back to words like then, after that, maybe later, and definitely finally. And they basically said these words are the key, maybe the secret sauce, to making your story just flow smoothly.
Smooth for you to tell and smooth for them to get.
Yeah. And when you kind of dig into a why they work,
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
It is. They function almost like signposts, don't they? Verbally guiding the listener through time.
Signpost, that's a good way to put it.
Because without them, it can just sound like a list of things that happened, a bit disconnected.
Right, just facts.
Yeah.
But with them.
It becomes more of a journey, something the listener experiences with you step by step.
And the sources suggested this makes it way easier on the listener. Less work for them.
Yeah, exactly. Less cognitive load is the term, I think. They don't have to struggle to figure out the sequence.
That makes total sense. You're like paving a path for them.
Instead of just dropping random bricks for them to stumble over.
Yeah. And the material had that great little example, didn't it? Super
The
simple.
park one. Yeah, that was good.
We reached the park. Okay, first step.
Then we played games. Immediate next action.
Right. And after the games. After that, we had ice cream.
See, it signals the next distinct phase. Not immediately after, necessarily, but following the games.
And the conclusion. Finally, we came home. Clear endpoint.
That structure, even though it's basic, it just works perfectly. It links those separate moments, arriving, playing, eating, leaving, so clearly in order.
Then after that, finally. Each word does a specific job.
It really does. It transforms a list into a mini narrative. You feel the time passing.
You know where you are in the story. These words pull you along.
And that's the core idea the sources were hitting on, I think.
Yeah.
Mastering these, well, basic chronological connectors is fundamental.
It's not about fancy vocabulary.
No, not at all. It's about using simple tools, but using them strategically. For clarity, for flow.
So the listener can almost anticipate what kind of step is coming next, or at least understand how moments relate.
Exactly.
Okay, so wrapping up the main insights here, it's pretty clear. These simple connector words, they pack a punch.
They really do. Far more powerful than they might seem at first glance.
So to recap from the sources, words like then, after that, later, finally, they're really essential tools.
Tools for guiding your listener, yeah. Making sure they stay with you.
And that park example structure, we reached the park and we played games. After that, we had ice cream. Finally, we came home.
Yeah.
That just perfectly shows how these words build that flow.
Makes the whole experience understandable, engaging. It connects things.
That connects the dots.
Yeah. And thinking maybe a bit broader now, consider how choosing these small words, consciously doing it, doesn't just link sentences.
What else does it do?
Well, it sort of connects your memory, your experience directly to the listener's understanding. It lets them walk through the story step by step with you.
Bridging that gap.
Right. So it makes you wonder, perhaps, how else might these subtle structures, these small linguistic choices beyond just sequence words, shape how we share moments and maybe even how we understand time itself? So today we're diving straight into the source material you sent over. And it's all about, well, unlocking something really key, isn't it? Your ability to talk about things that happened, you know, past events, experiences in English.
Absolutely. It's pretty fundamental for sharing who you are, right? Your personal story.
Yeah.
So I guess our mission for this deep dive is to really sift through these sources, find those core insights, the things that'll help you feel, more confident telling your own history.
Okay, let's unpack that. The sources, they seem to really focus first on specific phrases, like starting points.
Yeah, like signposts. That's a good way to put it, like the material suggested. They tell your listener straight away, okay, pay attention, I'm sharing a memory.
Right, narrative launch codes, you call them. Like, last year I went to, or maybe when I was a child.
Exactly. They instantly place your audience in time, context.
Yeah.
Which is crucial for any memory you're sharing.
And there were others too, right? The sources also highlighted ones that signal something maybe more specific, a particular moment that, stood out.
Like, I remember one time.
Yeah, that one. Or it was the first time those feel really good for like zeroing in on something unique, something significant.
What I found interesting in the material was the why. Why are these simple structures, well, why are they so effective?
Okay.
It's not just about the grammar points. The sources suggest these phrases connect to how we actually, process memories, how we recall things.
Oh.
They help structure the memory, not just for the listener, but for you, the speaker, too. It makes it way easier to follow along, to engage with.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. You're not just listing facts, you're inviting someone into a specific little slice of your past.
Exactly.
The source had that simple example, didn't it? To show how it works, the Paris trip.
Oh, yeah, the Paris one. It started last summer. I visited Paris with my family. Simple.
See, there it is. Last summer, I visited one of those key signposts. Straight away, sets the scene.
But then, crucially, it adds what the sources really emphasized. Specific details.
Which were...
We saw the Eiffel Tower and ate a lot of croissants.
Right, and that's where the story really comes alive, doesn't it? The material stressed that. It's not just, we went sightseeing.
No, you need those concrete sensory details. Why the Eiffel Tower? Why croissants? It matters.
And the sources explain why, didn't they?
Yeah, they suggest these specifics aren't just descriptive, they're evocative. Mentioning the Eiffel Tower, bam, clear image, everyone knows it.
Okay.
Talking about eating croissants, that hits the senses, right?
Yeah.
Taste, smell, maybe even the texture. Much more memorable, the sources argue, than just saying, we tried local food.
Yeah, much more engaging. It helps the listener almost feel like they were there, yeah.
Exactly. It activates more in their brain. Shifts it from just a report, like you said, to an actual shared experience.
And the example just wrapped up neatly. It was a beautiful trip. Nice little concluding thought for that memory.
And this brings us to the challenge, the one the sources pose directly to you, the listener.
Which is...
Now, you've seen how these signposts and specific details work together.
Yeah.
How do you use them for your own life?
Right. The sources prompt you to think about a fun day you had.
Yeah. How would you describe that day? Starting with one of those phrases and really making sure to weave in those vivid, concrete details.
Trying it is definitely the way to go. Just pick a memory. Could be recent, could be ages ago.
Doesn't matter when.
And just try starting last weekend. I remember one time when.
Yeah.
And consciously add one or two specific things. A sight, a sound, a taste,
Perfect. So, okay, let's recap this deep dive. We've seen how the source material breaks down this really powerful skill, recounting your past.
Yeah, the core idea seems to be using those specific introductory phrases, the signposts. Last year I went to, when I was a child. I remember one time. And it was the first time stuff like that. And then combining those with really specific sensory details, like seeing the Eiffel Tower, eating the croissants in the Paris example.
Right. The sources really hammered home that it's those details that make your memory relatable, vivid. They help structure the story in a way that just clicks with how our brains work.
So your challenge, your takeaway is to try using these tools. Describe a fun day from your own experience.
And as you practice, as you start using these structures, these details from the sources, to talk about your own history.
Yeah.
Maybe keep this final thought in mind.
How does this process, choosing which experiences to share and the specific words you use, how does that not only help you communicate better, but maybe subtly shape how you actually understand your own past and, well, who you are today?
We all have these stories inside us, right? Things that happened, moments we remember.
Absolutely. And that need to share them, to connect over shared pasts. That's just fundamentally human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're learning English, figuring out how to actually talk about the past is, well, it's crucial for unlocking that sharing. So today we're diving into some, let's call them foundational notes. Basically, the core mechanics English uses for past events.
Yeah, the real basics.
Our mission here is pretty focused. Pull out the absolute essentials from this material. The goal is to help you, our listener, feel way more confident telling your own stories, recounting things that happened.
And the source material suggests English has a pretty direct way of doing this. It seems to center on one main idea.
Okay, let's get into that. So the notes identify the simple past tense, that's the main engine, right? For actions that are finished, done.
That's it, completed actions. And the structure they point out is honestly very straightforward.
It looks like subject, so who or what did the thing, and then bam, the verb, but in its past form.
Right. Subject, then past verb. It creates that clear sequence, who did it, plus what they did, plus maybe more details.
So by sticking that past verb right after the subject, You immediately know who acted and that it's over.
Yeah, the examples make it clear. Things like, I watched a movie, or she visited her grandmother.
We played football. You see how I connects right to watched? She to visited, we to played.
That simple pattern does so much work in building a narrative, telling you what happened.
But like with language often, it's not always quite that simple with the verbs themselves, is it? Getting them into that past form.
Ah, yes. The source material makes a really important split here. It divides verbs into two main groups based on how they form the past.
Okay, 2 categories. What are they?
Well, first you've got the regular verbs. And the great thing here, according to the notes, is predictability.
Predictable how?
You just add ed to the end of the basic verb form. Simple rule.
Oh, okay. Like walk becomes walked.
Exactly. Or clean becomes cleaned. Enjoy becomes enjoyed. If it's a regular verb, you know the drill. Tack on "-ide".
Got it. So that "-ed" is like a little flag saying this is past. Makes sense. Very systematic.
Very. But then there's the other group. The notes call them irregular verbs.
Irregular. Okay, so these don't just add "-ade".
Nope. No aid for these guys. They change in ways that are, well, less predictable. Sometimes the whole word transforms.
Right. The examples given are things like go changes to went.
Yeah. Or eat becomes ate. See becomes saw.
On completely different forms. No aid on those at all.
And what's really crucial, the sources stress this, is that many of these irregular verbs are incredibly common, words you use constantly.
Like go, eat, see, have, be. Those are fundamental.
Exactly. They just happen to have these unique past forms, probably left over from, older stages of the language. They didn't get regularized.
Okay, so bringing this together for you, our listener, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, it means understanding that core structure subject plus the past form of the verb is step 1.
Right. And step 2 is knowing whether that verb is regular so it gets the ed.
Or if it's one of these irregular ones that has its own special past form, you just have to, learn.
And getting that down gives you the fundamental tool, the main building block for actually sharing your past experiences in English.
It's the difference between just knowing vocabulary and actually weaving it into a story about your life. It lets you build your narrative.
So, quick recap. The simple past tense is your go-to for finished actions. Structure. Subject plus past verb.
And those verbs come in 2 flavors. Regular ones that reliably add ed.
And the irregular ones, often very common, that change in unique ways. You need both.
Grasping that distinction is pretty fundamental to describing anything that's already happened.
And why should you care so much about mastering this?
Because it's how you share your world. Your memories, your experiences, the things that make you you. It's how you connect with others about what's happened. It fuels your personal story.
Okay, so based purely on what we've looked at in these notes, here's something to think about. The regular verbs, they follow that simple add pattern, right? Pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
But consider those irregular verbs, the ones like went, ate, saw. They force you to learn unique forms, one by one. They demand more attention.
Right. They don't fit the easy pattern.
So could grappling with those specific unpredictable changes, really mastering those common irregular verbs actually be a deeper part of the journey? Like maybe truly owning those tricky ones is key to confidently telling your own unique past stories in English.
That's an interesting thought. Does mastering the exceptions somehow cement your ability more strongly? Something to definitely ponder.
Okay, let's get into this. We've got some really interesting source material today. It's all about, talking about your past experiences, but making it actually interesting for other people.
Right. It's not necessarily about having an incredibly dramatic life. It's more about how you share the experiences you do have.
Yeah, exactly. And the material we looked at, it really gets down to some simple techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out those key ideas for you. How to turn a plain account into, a story.
Mm-hmm. The story that connects. And the core idea coming from these sources is pretty clear. It's not some secret sauce. It's about consciously adding certain things into how you tell it.
And those things, the big 2 highlighted, are feelings and details. Seem straightforward, but maybe not always obvious.
Exactly. Feelings and details. Let's start with feelings. It's like you don't just say, I went to that concert.
Right. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
Flack.
Totally flat. The sources really push adding how you felt. Were you excited, a bit nervous, maybe overwhelmed? Telling people that feeling. That's the hook. That's how they relate.
Okay, yeah. So if you say, I was actually kind of anxious standing in that huge crowd,
Mm-hmm.
someone listening might think, oh yeah, I know that feeling. It creates a connection.
Precisely. It's like you're inviting them into your internal experience, not just showing them a postcard. It shifts from reporting to sharing, makes it human.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
From this happened to this is what it felt like. Big difference.
Huge. It lets the listener sort of step into your shoes for a moment.
Okay, so that's feelings. What about the other element?
Details.
Right, details. The source material points to adding those little specifics. Things like what the place looked like, a particular sound, maybe even the weather.
Like sensory information, stuff you could see, hear, maybe smell.
Exactly. Sensory stuff. It grounds the story. Instead of just, I went to a party, the source might give an example. Like, I went to a party and the room was packed, just full of people I didn't know. Ah, okay. That little detail, full of people I didn't know, it adds something. Maybe a hint of that anxiety we talked about.
It can, yeah. Or maybe curiosity or excitement. The detail starts to paint the picture and often hints at the feeling. They work together. Was the music really loud? Was the coffee surprisingly good? Those specifics make it concrete.
But you can't describe everything, right? That would be boring too. How do you pick?
Good point. The sources suggest, mostly through the examples they use, that you pick details that matter. Details relevant to the core event or the feeling. Like the squeaky door, if it's a spooky story.
Or the bright color of something if it was a really vibrant, happy memory.
Exactly. Details that enhance the mood or the main point. Not just random facts, but selected specifics. It's about choosing the brush strokes that create the right image, the right feeling for your listener.
Okay. So not just an info dump, curated details.
Mm-hmm. Makes it immersive.
So wrapping this up then, the big takeaway from our deep dive today, really leaning on this source material, is just how powerful these two simple things, feelings and details are.
Yeah. Adding how you felt creates that vital emotional resonance, lets people connect, and adding those specific details that makes the scene vivid, makes it almost tangible in the listener's mind.
It's true. You really notice when they're missing, don't you?
Yeah.
The story just falls flat. But when someone tells you how nervous they were and describes the shaky microphone stand, suddenly you're right there.
Absolutely. It pulls you in. It's the difference between hearing about something and almost experiencing it.
So maybe something for you listening to think about, building on this. Take an experience you shared recently, just a simple one. What's one specific feeling you had then? Or maybe just one tiny concrete detail you remember that you could add next time you tell that story. Something to make it really pop, make it come alive for someone else.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
We're doing a quick, but I think pretty revealing deep dive today.
Yeah. What's the focus?
It's about something we all do, like constantly. Describing things that happen, past experiences.
Ah, okay. Storytelling, basically.
Exactly. But we rarely think how we do it. Our source material is really short, just a snippet of a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Little examples, big lessons sometimes.
Totally. So the mission is, let's unpack this simple little exchange, see what it tells us about connecting, through stories.
Got it. So what's the source, this conversation snippet?
Right. So it's basically a Q&A. Starts with, when did you first travel outside your country? Simple question.
Okay, standard enough.
And the answer is just, it's brilliant, really, in how straightforward it is. It gives you the key stuff immediately.
Like what?
Like 2019, the place, Kenya, why? Student exchange. Straightforward.
Okay, the basic facts. Who, what, where, when.
But then it adds more. The actions. Things like they met new people. They learned some Swahili.
Oh, nice. Specific.
Yeah. And stayed with a local family. And then, this is crucial, the source includes the feeling.
The emotional part.
Yes. It says it was exciting and eye-opening.
Right,
Yeah.
right. See, that's interesting already. It's not just a list.
No.
It's not just, I went to Kenya in 2019.
Yeah.
The actions, meeting people, the language, the family stay,
Yeah.
that starts to, paint a picture.
Is it life?
And adding the feeling exciting, eye-opening, that's where you, the listeners, start to connect, right? You can almost imagine it.
It pulls you in, shifts it from just like a report.
To something shared. Yeah. The start of a shared moment.
Exactly. But okay, my first thought was, is that it? Just the facts and how it felt?
But the source doesn't stop there.
No, that's what's cool. The conversation apparently continued. The next question was basically, so what did you learn from that trip?
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. The so what factor.
Precisely. And the answer in the source mentioned things like learning to adapt, about being open-minded.
Important stuff.
Yeah, and appreciating different cultures. Think about that. If it just stopped at exciting and eye-opening.
It's a nice story, an anecdote, pleasant.
Right, but adding the lessons learned, that elevates it, doesn't it?
Totally. It shows reflection.
Mm-hmm.
It shows growth, enduring impact. It's not just what happened, but what it meant.
Yes, it makes it, this happened, and here's how it changed me or what I took away. That's the core insight this source seems to be pointing towards.
It's that transformation piece.
Yeah.
Not just the experience, but the outcome.
And if you think about communication generally, that structure is just so powerful.
It really is. Because, look, lots of people just give you the facts.
Yeah.
Or maybe they only talk about feelings, get a bit lost in that.
Uh-huh.
But adding that third piece, the learning, the specific impact it gives it, like depth.
Resonance.
Makes it stick with you. Makes it valuable for the listener, not just the teller.
Exactly. And that's why the source itself apparently mentions that this kind of sharing, this structure.
It improves your storytelling, and it helps build global friendships.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right?
It does, because you're not just swapping data points. You're sharing perspective. You're sharing growth.
Mm-hmm. And look, it's kind of a blueprint you can use almost anywhere.
How so?
Well, think about telling someone about, I don't know, starting a new hobby.
Yeah.
Or a really tough project you finished at work.
Or even just a book you read that made you think.
Right. Using that structure, what happened, how it felt, and what you learned from it, or how it sort of shifted your view.
It makes it relatable, insightful for other people.
Connects you.
Which brings us neatly to the final thought we wanted to leave you, the listener, with. It comes straight from this source materials idea.
Okay.
Just consider this. How can simply structuring your own stories, the things you talk about around what happened, how it genuinely felt, and crucially, what you learned, how can that help you tell better stories and maybe build stronger connections?
Yeah. Think about the stories you tell day to day. Could this structure add something?
Something to mull over. Okay, let's unpack this one. We've got some material here diving into something, well, pretty fundamental, right? The power of telling your story.
Mm-hmm. Specifically about past stuff, experiences you've had.
Exactly. And our mission sort of for this deep dive is to really get why that matters, why sharing those histories is important, according to this source anyway.
Yeah, and the central idea seems pretty powerful, actually. It's that storytelling isn't just, listing things that happened.
Right.
It's framed as a tool, a key tool for connecting with other people.
Building bridges, like you said, by sharing your own path.
Yeah, exactly. And it's deep-rooted, the source says. Not just casual chat. It has a real function.
So what is that function, then? What's the outcome?
Well, what's interesting is how the source links sharing experiences to this specific chain of results. It says when you share effectively, people don't just hear facts.
They get it, like an understanding.
Yes, a deeper understanding of you. That's the word they use.
Ah, okay. That moment where someone gets why something mattered to you or how you ended up where you are.
Precisely. And tied right into that understanding is connection. A sense of, bonding with the person telling the story.
Understanding leads to connection. Makes sense.
And then the sources take it one step further. That understanding, that connection, they're basically the foundation for building trust.
Trust. Okay, that's a big one.
It really is. The material highlights trust as this key benefit. Opening up, sharing your past in the right way, apparently makes people more likely to trust you.
But how? How does just talking about stuff that happened build trust? Like, what are the key parts of the storytelling?
Right, that's the crucial bit, the how. And the sources do give some pointers there.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a job interview or maybe meeting someone new, even online stuff. The advice is pretty clear. Tell your story with clarity and emotion. Those two things.
Clarity and emotion. Okay, let's break that down. What does clarity mean here? Just like chronological order.
Well, yes, partly. But it's more about giving enough detail, enough structure so the listener can, follow along easily, visualize it almost, see your path.
Gotcha.
Not just a jumble of facts.
Exactly. And emotion, that doesn't mean being like super dramatic or anything. No, it's about being honest about the feelings involved. The challenge maybe, or the excitement, the lesson you learned.
So it's that emotional honesty that makes it relatable. Lets the listener connect on that level.
That's the idea. They feel with you, not just hear about you. That's the difference the source points to.
Okay, so let's take one of those examples. The job interview.
Yeah.
The material saying, don't just list your skills for a project.
No. You need that clarity. Maybe describe the steps, the problem you hit.
Okay.
Combined with the emotion, how you felt tackling it, or the satisfaction, when you figured it out.
And that blend.
Yeah.
Clarity plus emotion.
Yeah.
That's what builds the understanding, the connection.
And ultimately, yeah, the interviewers trust in your skills, but also maybe your character, how you handle things. Right, it paints a fuller picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this isn't just like theory. The source is connected right back to those real situations. Interviews, making new friends, building an audience online.
It's always about the narrative. Your personal story, told that way clearly, with feeling, becomes this powerful asset.
Precisely.
So, okay, summing this up then. The main takeaway from this deep dive seems to be sharing your experiences, your past,
Right.
if you do it with intention, focusing on clarity and genuine emotion. That's presented as a direct route to building understanding with people.
And fostering connection.
And earning trust. Yeah, it's like relationship architecture almost, not just telling tales.
Well put. And the source really flags those key moments, right? Job interviews, new friendships, online engagement, places where your story can really make a difference.
Okay, so that kind of leaves a final thought for you, the listener, drawing straight from this material. Given that storytelling is framed here as this, well, really potent way to build trust and connection, how could you maybe be more intentional about using clarity and emotion when you share your own experiences?
Yeah, like in your next conversation. Or maybe online.
What story could you tell, real differently, with those elements in mind? Something to think about.
Repeat after me. Last year, I learned to swim. I traveled to a new city and explored many places. We celebrated my birthday with music and food. It was one of the best days of my life. Great job. Say it with feeling. That's a wrap for episode 46 of SpeakNest English Podcast Zone. Today, you learned how to describe past events and share personal experiences. A beautiful way to connect with the world. In the next episode, we'll learn how to give directions and explain places in English. It's helpful for travel, daily conversations, and even job roles. Until next time, keep smiling, keep sharing, and remember, your story matters. Your English is growing. Take care, and goodbye.